Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be the answers and results for Avatar Trivia Challenge number 2, the Kyoshi Novel Special Edition. So you guys have had a week to go over the questions, put your answers together, and send them to me by email. A bunch of you have, and now it's time to reveal the answers to all 11 questions in addition to what score everyone who participated got. So let's jump straight in by going through the answers. So we'll start with question 1, of course. In the Kyoshi novels, we see 2 potential disasters for the Sauron clan's home island averted. What were these 2 disasters, and how were they stopped from happening? First answer is dark phoenix eel spirits were threatening to break through into the physical world on Ma'inka Island. Karuk managed to kill it before it could fully break through. So that's a pretty clear one because they specifically note that the dark spirits that Karuk deals with are basically like bloodthirsty. They're out to kill. That if he doesn't stop them, they are going on a rampage that will result in a lot of humans being killed. So this would have been a pretty much like unstoppable dark phoenix eel spirit going wild on the Sauron clan's home island. That is definitely a disaster, and Karuk stops it. I was not accepting Yang Chen negotiating with them in the first place as an answer because, one, they note that they're sort of like bloodthirsty because they become dark once the deal with Yang Chen falls away during Karuk's era. So I don't think it would have been as bad if the Phoenix Eels did whatever they were planning to do in the past that caused Yang Chen to have to deal with them. So I don't really think it's a valid answer to the question, but also it's way too similar an answer to the first disaster to where I don't typically ask questions where the 2 answers are like borderline identical. So anyone who did answer with those 2, I just had them like, you know, if you have another answer, send that in, and most people did. Because the main one I was looking for, like the core of the question in a way, was about this one, realizing that this was this disaster that was about to happen as well. Firelord Zoryu was about to wipe out the entire Sauron clan, including going after them on their home island of Ma'inka. Kyoshi threatened Zoryu to make sure he would never go ahead with this plan. Once you said something along those lines, you got your full marks on the question. I didn't need you to go like crazy in detail, like you didn't have to mention Lao Ge or anything like that, just this general idea of Zoryu's plan to wipe out the whole clan, including going after them on their island, and Kyoshi, whether through a deal or threatening him, was what stopped it from happening. Question 2. We actually visit the home island of the Kyoso clan in Avatar The Last Airbender. What is the name of this island? What episode of Avatar The Last Airbender do we go there in? And how do we know the 2 places are the same? The Kyoso clan home island is Shuhan Island. We see it in Avatar The Last Airbender Book 3 Fire, Episode 7, The Runaway. We know they are the same since the overhead shot of North Chung Ling matches the description from the book. Also, the abundance of opportunities to gamble connects the book and the episode. More specifically, here you go. Here's a screenshot from 307, and the description from the book is, but inside their caldera, the residents of North Chung Ling had opted to build in wedges. Houses and market stalls angled their way towards the center, separated by streets that resembled the spokes of a wheel. So that's the most clear-cut example, but also the old Nickelodeon website had basically a fact file section about Fire Fountain City, which is the Avatar present-day name of North Chung Ling, and it mentions that in the past it used to be known as North Chung Ling. So the North Chung Ling name originally comes from Nick.com, not the Kyoshi novels, which I think some people didn't know. But anyway, that's that question. Question 3. What event from the past causes the Sauron clan to have issues with the Saenaka clan? Lady Huazo's relationship with Firelord Cheryu came to an end when Cheryu's ministers, a lot of them being Saenaka clan members, arranged for Cheryu to meet Lady Sulan of the Kyoso clan and arrange their marriage. They had already been planting the seeds in his head to break off the relationship with Huazo, and this event made it easy for Cheryu to choose Sulan. Huazo is shown to not think that highly of the Saenaka clan when she talks about them to Kyoshi. Again, the focus of the book is more about the Kyoso clan versus the Sauron clan, but there is a slight element in this book of also Sauwon and Seinaka, mainly because of this incident here for Huazo, who of course is the leader of the Sauwon clan, so of course it would impact how she views the Seinaka that this happened to her in the past. And you can see that she has sort of issues to a degree with the Seinaka, because she takes so much joy in seeing Heiran in such a bad position, like without her honor, without her top knot, and she like pats her on the head and stuff like that, in addition to sort of really trying to make it clear to Kyoshi that like, you think the Seinaka clan is like perfect because Rangi and Heiran are from it, but like they get involved in the politics just as much as everyone does, and she's just trying to show they're no saints either, basically. So a more subtle point, but I think most people got what I was going for with this question. Question 4, what is a panchem or a banchem, however you want the pronunciation to be? This was a very interesting question in that I asked it and I sort of knew that this was going to be a all or nothing question. People are either going to know exactly what I'm talking about and get it right, or not have any clue what I'm talking about and have no idea how to answer the question. And that's sort of how it turned out. Some people did get this right, some people had no idea. So I actually, in the middle of the trivia, discovered something new about it. Mainly, what the word actually is, how it's actually spelled, and I'll cover that in a second. But here's the answer as it sort of is and would be, just for the question as asked, and then I'll give you the specifics that I learned about in a second. So the answer I was basically looking for is that a panchem or a banchem is a part of a person's body, specifically part of their chi network. Through it, it is believed that you can extract someone's chi from their body. Hundun from the Legend of Korra video game mentions it as he reveals his plan. After countless ages of searching, I discovered a technique that will make me whole again. A way to extract chi from what the mystics call your banchem. So again, pronunciation on that's a bit weird, but once you mentioned basically this line, once you had the sense that it was from the video game, Hundun in this scene where he explains his plan, and you covered just the general line where it comes from, you were getting the answers just for knowing what I was talking about. But the new information that I have is that there is another version of the Legend of Korra video game that's different, and that is the 3DS version of the game. Because the 3DS is sort of not as powerful hardware, of course, the game had to be very different, also because it was a handheld. So this was more of a tactics style game like Fire Emblem and Advanced Wars, rather than the kind of beat 'em up style game that the console version was. So the game like didn't have voice acting, but it did have the dialogue shown in text boxes. And there's a bunch of other differences as well, like the story is slightly expanded in some ways and it's not quite as in-depth in others. So it's kind of interesting. It's the same core story though. But the key thing is that it does feature this full spelling of what this word actually is. So you can see it there. It's the same line, what the mystics call your Dan Tien. So it's D-A-N space T-I-E-N. It's, you know, it's a two-word term together, you know, put together to mean like one thing. So that's how it's spelled. And you can see straight away where my issue was of like, I think the panchem banchem spelling that I had for it fit the way the audio says it, because I've listened to it so many times, and to me, I'm not hearing anything resembling a D sound at the start of the way the voice actor says this line at all. So I don't know if the word was written differently on the script or whatever, or in doing the Hundun voice, it just sort of like distorted how he was going to say the word, because it's very like overpronounced to the point where you can barely tell what the word is. But I definitely don't get Dan Tien from the way it's said. So you can listen to the audio of that scene here, and I've also edited in just specifically the word being said a few times in a row, just so you can familiarize yourself with it.
And after countless ages of searching, I discovered a technique that will make me whole again. A way to extract your chi from what the mystics call your banchem. 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 Banchem.
Yeah, the basic idea is that, look, here's a brand new piece of information that pretty much no one knows about, because this game was not available in so many places. I think it only came out in America and maybe Canada. So it's sort of a region locked game to only one region, and barely anyone knows it exists. So this is sort of a really deep cut of information. So I think it's fun to kind of go through here. And then the final point I'll make is just trying to make a little bit of a lore topic out of this. The chi paths and the chakras from Avatar are based on stuff like yoga. So looking up the term Dantian, you can see that it is also based on similar real world ideas. In this case, it seems like they've taken Dantian, which is usually a similar thing to chakras, and have instead, in Avatar, combined it with the chakra idea to create the idea that in Avatar you have 7 chakras and 1 Dantian. Chakras relate to the flow of energy through the body. They're these spiraling pools of energy in your body, while your Dantian is a place where chi can be extracted from. That's about all we can kind of interpret from the one line from Hundun. It's this sort of almost secret place, relatively unknown by most people, part of the chi paths that Hundun has figured out you can actually take chi out of the body from, which is an interesting concept, because he wants to sort of regain some sort of immortal form so he can be more present in the physical world, and he figures out that he can do that by extracting Korra's chi from her, which is an interesting idea about like how to turn a spirit into a mortal or gain a full physical body. So that's an interesting one to kind of think about. But anyway, we'll move on. Question 5. In Turf Wars, the villain Tokuga has his physical appearance altered by a spirit who jumped inside him briefly. Name 6 other examples of a human and a spirit merging or combining. With the idea that merging, combining, very open term. I'm not specifically looking for just Tokuga-esque examples. This was just human and spirit merging, combining, linking in some way. Just very general, open to a lot of different types of spirit links. And yeah, here's what we have. So the 2 Avatar ones are, of course, Wan Rava, Korra Rava. I wasn't accepting them separately, but one or the other was fine. The Avatar is definitely an example of this. Similarly, the Dark Avatar, Unalaq and Vatu, is another example of this. Yun and Father Glowworm is a more unique example of a human who consumes a spirit by defeating a spirit so much that you can eat them, basically. And Yun, we can see, gains Father Glowworm's ability to tunnel between worlds, as well as like getting a massive power boost to his bending power. So it's clear that they kind of link, merge, their energies combine in some way. Yao and the Tree Spirit is a Tokuga-like example. Same with the Hunter and Ai. Same goes for the son of a provincial governor during the Hao Dynasty and the Dragon Bird Spirit that is mentioned in Shadow of Kyoshi. They're all spirit morphing examples. Aang, Rava, and Law is, of course, Koizilla, which is very much a combination of human and spirit. Multiple spirits in this case, actually, because it's, you know, Aang in the Avatar state and Law, the ocean spirit, so definitely fits. And then probably the most unique example on the list is Yue and Tui, with the idea that Yue was born like with an illness to where she couldn't open her eyes, and it was not until she got a fraction of the moon spirit's life force that she was able to sort of properly live. And the fact that that's even a thing, that like an aspect of the moon spirit has always been inside Yue, and then she's able to sort of return the favor when the rest of like the moon spirit is killed, definitely speaks to the idea that this is definitely a sort of a different type, but still a human and the spirit merging, combining in some way. Their energies are interlinked at the very least. So I think they were pretty much all the valid answers. There's not too many ones where it's like, I don't really agree with that one. So I don't really remember going through the answers and having any ones where I'm like, no, that's not correct. I think this is pretty much all of them. Like I said, the only issue was just I wasn't accepting Wan Rava and Korra Rava as 2 separate answers, because Korra is a reincarnation of Wan. It's the same combination, just 2 different times. Question 6. In the Shadow of Kyoshi, exactly how old is Kyoshi? Give your answer in years and days, ignoring leap years, so the calculation is easier. The answer comes on page 147 of the Shadow of Kyoshi. Rangi says the line, did you know it's technically the 6,454th day of the era of Kyoshi? And then the narration says, counting the days by where they fell in an avatar's life was a formal and archaic method of timekeeping. So to do the calculation, you just do 6454 divided by 365, and you get 17 remainder 249. So it's 17 years, 249 days is your answer. You probably had to do an extra little calculation in the middle of that, because you probably would get the answer in a decimal point and would have to work with that to get the 249, but it's pretty simple maths overall. Question 7. Name 5 spirits who can or have created a passageway between the physical and spirit world, or have the ability to transfer between the worlds without needing a portal. So a bunch of answers to this one. I probably should have chosen an amount of answers for you to give me higher than 5. The way I put this question together was that I had a relatively small list of answers for this question that were, to me, directly confirmed. Like, these are 100% valid answers to this question, and I wasn't really even including a lot of the sort of like, maybe this is, maybe this isn't type situations, but then a lot of people gave answers that were more on the kind of borderline between like, it's kind of confirmed, kind of isn't. And so I kind of realized like, yeah, I kind of have to give those as like valid answers. But anyway, the first few, I think they're the really obvious ones. Wan Shi Tong and Hei Bai, we both directly within their episodes see them transfer between the spirit world and back. Wan Shi Tong with the library, Hei Bai does it multiple times, as we see. Glowworm directly has the ability to create small tunnels or portals between the worlds. Vaatu and Rava together created the northern and southern spirit portals. Vaatu states it in the episode Beginnings, and then the Rava link into that is confirmed in the Book 2 Spirits art book. Mike and Brian both say that it was Rava and Vaatu together that created it, with the idea being that their energy of their fighting created the 2 spirit portals, so that makes sense. La, the ocean spirit, takes Zhao to the spirit world, hence why he's in the fog of lost souls. That just is a thing that happens, so she has that ability. Yue is seen talking to Aang in Escape from the Spirit World, in the Spirit World, as well as in 301 The Awakening, highlighting that she can be in both worlds as well. Tui and La together are talked about as having crossed over between worlds near the beginning, and that being the beginning of time or the beginning of the world, which I think highlights that they're so ancient that they just have the ability to transfer between worlds. That's, I think, very fine as the answer. The Kimura Kage, it's directly stated in dialogue that they say, between the era of the first Fire Lord and talking to you, Aang, we have not stepped foot in your world. Like, they directly say we haven't been in the physical world since the time of the first Fire Lord, so that confirms they have that ability since they appear before Aang. Ko, you have to also treat as being a valid answer to this question because of the Umi incident as well as the Rafa incident. Otherwise, how did Rafa get his face stolen? Who sucked Umi into the spirit pond? And so on. Even though we don't directly see Ko in the physical world, that had to be the case, given that both of those incidents like basically happened in the physical world. Knowledge seekers are an answer to this question because they still were able to bring Wan Shi Tong knowledge from the physical world, even though the library is in the spirit world. And then on a more sort of technical note, Mother of Faces and the Wolf Spirit, even though it's never directly said in the dialogue, I think you have to treat as being valid answers to this question. It's a bit weirdly done in the book how they show it, but I suppose roughly, I think in the dialogue they more or less get across that idea, even if I don't technically think it's fully correct. Furryfoot, we directly see when Jinora goes into the spirit world, Furryfoot is there with her, like he comes straight over with her. The last valid answer that I'm going to focus on is the Painted Lady. Now, the Painted Lady is on the list not because of when she appears to Katara. That isn't confirmed that she necessarily comes out of the spirit world. The Painted Lady's on the list for like sort of her creation as a spirit and what that says about, I suppose, where she had to have been. Because the Painted Lady is one of these characters we know was a human who then became a spirit. As is said, this information comes from the A New Spiritual Age episode commentary for Korra, and Brian explains it. And he basically says that the process for this is that a super spiritual person like basically meditates into the spirit world upon their death and becomes a spirit in the spirit world. And because the Painted Lady became a spirit in the spirit world, she then had to come out of the spirit world into the physical world. And obviously this was during an era where the portals were clearly closed, because they don't imply she's like an ancient spirit and for her to be a human and then to go back and forth. There has to have been this has to have been a situation where she is a spirit who has the ability to go from the spirit world into the physical world, and that's why she's on this list as more of a like technical point. You may not know about it, but it works. The main answer that people gave that I'm not accepting is General Old Iron, because they never state directly that him basically coming in and out of the ocean is him coming in and out of the spirit world. It's not stated, and so I think you can make a case for yes or no. And because I think there's pretty much equal cases either way, I don't think I can fully treat that as being an answer. I wish I could, in that it sort of fits, but it also isn't confirmed, and that's the main reason I'm not treating it that way. Spirits can still be in the physical world, but be invisible to humans, but can then choose to make themselves visible. Doesn't mean they were in the spirit world. And there's a few examples like that, where like, just because a spirit is in the physical world and only sort of like appeared there post spirit portals, doesn't mean that post spirit portals being kind of closed doesn't mean that they immediately transferred over. They could have just been in there since like they either didn't go through the portals when Juan had most of the spirits leave, and they've been here this whole time. You know, there's ways to get around some of those like set rules. So that's why for the most part the answers to these questions were ones where it's like super directly confirmed. Question 8. Prior to the introduction of bloodbending during Aang's era, give 3 examples of a waterbender bending the water inside someone's body. I realize I asked this question relatively poorly, and so I did give people who didn't give me who gave me specific answers that I wasn't accepting a chance to give another answer. I specifically clarified that I don't mean this. You can try again. The main clarifications here was that like a lot of people tried to give multiple examples of Sifu Ottawat's technique, whether done by Sifu Ottawat herself or Kyoshi, as answers, whereas I was only accepting one example of that technique. So that was one of them, and then I think I presented the timeline of this question a little weirdly. I basically meant that anything before Aang meets Hama, Aang and Katara meet Hama. So I'm talking about like when they encounter bloodbending rather than when Hama invents the technique. Meaning that you can include moments during ATLA, but just before 308. So there's a few clarifications. I just contacted people by email when they sent in their answers to, yeah, you can answer that again, and it was fine. But anyway, here are the answers. In 104, The Warriors of Kyoshi, Katara bends water out of Aang's body to save him from drowning. Very obvious one there. Sifu Ottawat's technique from the Shadow of Kyoshi, any instance of it, but the clearest one, most obvious one to fit this question is probably when Kyoshi kills Yoon by freezing his organs. Just because the core technique of cooling a person's body down isn't the most maybe clear-cut example of like you're bending water in someone else's body, but I still accepted it because it is water bending the water inside their body, just not as clear. And then the final answer is Kinto from the Avatar trading card game. Water bends the water in characters' stomachs to make them feel sick. There's the card where it's revealed on churning stomachs. Flavor text says one of Kinto's favorite pranks is to slosh his victims' insides. If you're wondering, like, wait, isn't the trading card game not canon? Like I said at the start of the question video, don't go off any like person's like interpretation of what is and is not canon. I treat pretty much, if it fits with everything else, to me, it's canon. There's only a very set amount of things in the Avatar universe that to me are like full-on non-canon, and that would include stuff like the last couple of stories in the Lost Adventures, which are clearly in an extra section, and it features stuff like cookie dough bending. The Avatar trading card game being considered canon or non-canon ultimately doesn't really affect anything. Like, Kinto being a character that exists within the franchise does not change that much. It's a book one encounter that the group had with him. This is basically his main notable trait, is that he bends water inside people's stomachs to make them feel sick, and that's really it. I much rather interpret canon as add in as much as we can rather than taking everything away just on, weird rules and stuff like that. So for future trivias going forward, just know that unless it's blatantly non-canon, I incorporate as much in as I can. So just if anyone was like hesitating, they knew about this and were wondering like, should I include that as an answer? Yes, the trading card game to me is fully canon. So include it in your questions all you want, answers all you want. Question 9. Korra created a new spirit portal when she blocked the blast from Kuvira's spirit vine cannon. In the past, another avatar came very close to creating a spirit portal. Which avatar was it, and what were the circumstances? The answer is Avatar Karuk in his fight with Father Glowworm. They nearly created a spirit portal. Such was the power at play during their fight. The quote from the book is, "Their fight nearly created a gaping hole in the boundary between realms." Shadow of Kyoshi, page 283/284. The sentence starts at the end of one page and goes into the next. Pretty simple one there. It's a more subtle point, and I think everyone got this one right. I think, except maybe one person I think might have got this one wrong. Again, this is an interesting one because it's actually a relatively subtle point in the book. I have a feeling I might have given a lot of people the answer if they had read most of my reviews of Shadow of Kyoshi, because I think I directly talked about it during that chapter. But for people who like the detail just as much as me, this obviously is a point that stands out quite heavily. Question 10. We know at least some details about 10 different avatars. Korra, Aang, Roku, Kyoshi, Karuk, Yang Chen, and Wan are well known. But who are the other 3 avatars, and what do we know about them? Not all are named, so at least one of those answers is going to be an unnamed avatar, but we know something that they've done. So here's the answer. Avatar Salai is one of our kind of named avatars, but we don't know much about this character, other than that they are considered one of the great avatars that the world has seen. The reputation is very similar to that of Yang Chen as being one of the greats, and that's really about all there is. It's sort of implied that this is potentially the Earth avatar before Kyoshi, but I don't think we know that for sure. Avatar Zito is, of course, the big one that's revealed in the Shadow of Kyoshi, so a hero in the Fire Nation for avoiding the return to the era of warlords through diplomacy and bureaucracy. Took up a job in the Fire Nation government and worked his way up to get the power to accomplish so much through diplomacy and bureaucracy. You didn't need to say too much about him, just a sense that you knew the general gist of the character. And then the final answer, the unnamed avatar, is the unnamed avatar who fought and defeated Hundun and his brother 1,000 or so years ago. Again, the video game's a little bit weird about its timeline. Sometimes they're very exact, like 1,000 years ago this happened. Other times they're like thousands of years ago this happened. So, the specifics on that isn't particularly important. Once you know, unnamed avatar fought, defeated Hundun, that's why he's a villain in the core video game. And then I just note here at the end, yes, it is noted that a past avatar was left-handed, but I did not accept it as a valid answer here, since it's not a particularly notable thing. In terms of the questions and the way I asked them, I think you probably know why that is not a valid answer to the question. I'm not in the habit of trying to trick anyone with these questions by one of the answers is this very weird, unusual thing that is nothing like the others. So I think that would have been very unfair if that was the other answer. There you can see the difference. Notable is defeated a villain we know about, versus is left-handed, you can see the difference. Final question, question 11. Name 20 characters who have been poisoned. They have to be named characters, no repeats. Smoke inhalation does not count. Named animals do count. So the smoke inhalation does not count clarification was basically so that every character who coughs from being in smoke isn't a valid answer to the question. This is basically to avoid people who encountered the Kimura Kage and their smoke not being answers to the question. And I think like Korra and Mako, like with the Equalist used smoke quite a bit. That wasn't obviously like a toxic gas that was poisoning people. When it's literally just smoke, cough, I wasn't really interpreting that as a correct answer to the question. The other clarifications I think are relatively clear. And then I think on the YouTube comments I did specify that like I'm not counting cactus juice, so don't include like Momo and Sokka for cactus juice as being valid answers. But anyway, this is what I have as my list of answers. So let's go through this as quickly as possible. So the first 7 names on the list there: Jianzhu, Heiran, Chamberlain Hui, Herbalist Pan, General Sayuk, Sage Ryong, and Zhang Dako. All of them are poisoned in the same instance at the Avatar Mansion poisoning that is done by Jianzhu. He poisons himself, Heiran, and the other Earth Sages who are named there, plus a bunch of other unnamed Earth Sages. So a bunch of other people die in this poisoning. But that's like 7 out of 20 right there, just with one instance. Jianzhu is also on the list for his poison training with Amok, where they took like small doses of poison to make themselves more immune to the effects of poison. But we'll come back to that in a second. Kyoshi is an example on this list for 2 reasons. She gets hit with a Shirshu dart and goes down. As well as being inhaling some toxic smoke from incense that Jianzhu does, which basically sort of paralyzes her so that he can have Glowworm basically check their blood to determine who is the Avatar, so they wouldn't like run away or fight back. So it was very clearly, yes, it's sort of a smoke that comes out of this, but it was clearly some sort of a poison that had an effect outside of just making someone cough. So I think that's why it's a poison. But the Shirshu dart is obviously a poison, as we know. In the same Shirshu dart attack, Lek and Rongi are also hit. Lek actually dies because he's allergic to it. Rongi is hit and goes down, of course. Also by a Shirshu dart, Naga and Korra at the start of the Terror Within, when the Red Lotus attack. Naga gets hit as well as Korra. And then Korra, obviously, also for the Mercury poisoning by the Red Lotus. And also, as well, the Korra video game also seems to show Korra getting poisoned. It's slightly unclear in that she gets hit with a bunch of sort of metal rods at the very start of that game that have the effect of, like, she sort of, like, gradually faints. And it's unclear if it's just because she's been, like, very heavily chi-blocked or if it's some sort of a poison. But Korra, the poisoning instances are so obvious that I don't think anyone was going to use the Hundun example, but it's there if you want to know about it. Zen of the Triple Threat Triads is poisoned by the poison at the end of Turf Wars. We see him directly coughing from it, and it's noted in the book that it is toxic gas, and Korra notes that she's going to have to heal everyone who's inhaled it at the end of the book. So next up, Appa both gets hit with a Shirshu dart and by Nyla's tongue. So it's poisoned twice by Shirshu venom. Shirshu dart is in Appa's Lost Days, and then Nyla in Bottle of the Water Tribe. Also in Bottle of the Water Tribe, Katara, Sokka, Zuko, and June all get hit with Nyla's tongue. Iroh poisons himself by making a tea out of the white jade bush, which gives him a pretty bad rash, and it's sort of implied that, like, yeah, if his throat closes up, he could die or something like that. Roku inhales volcanic toxic gas that comes out of a geyser at the top of the volcano. That's more than smoke inhalation, because he specifically notes out loud, don't inhale the toxic gas. Prince Wu gets hit with knockout gas when he's kidnapped in the reunion. Again, it's a specifically colored gas that immediately KOs Wu, so it's more than smoke inhalation. Azulon is killed by an untraceable poison made by Ursa with information from her mother, and used by Ozai to kill Azulon, of course. That's from The Search. Yoon is also poisoned by the same incense that Kyoshi is, as well as also undergoing the same poison resistance training as Jeonju. Milo is poisoned by purple berries in The Calling. That's episode 4, I believe, of Book 4 Balance. Jinora, I think in dialogue, specifically notes that they're poison berries. And, you know, it's maybe one of the more questionable inclusions on the list because it seems to just make his stomach upset. But he's like shaking and stuff like that. So I think it's almost like a little bit more than that. It's like very violent, like food poisoning style thing rather than just upset stomach stuff. But anyway, it says it's poison, so I included it on the list. Amok also for the poison training, but this time himself. Ki, Tom Tom, and Guri from Smoke and Shadow are given a sedative and kidnapped. And in this case, it's a proper example because a sedative being used in this way is definitely like a poisoning to me. I think it's a fair enough inclusion on the list, and it's different than, say, Yukon, who clearly gets some sort of a sedative as he goes under for his facial reconstruction. That to me isn't poisoning because of the situation at play there. And there was a few examples people gave that I wasn't going to treat as an answer. I suppose the most obvious one was Fang. Even though I said named animals counted, to me just the fact that the episode never showed Fang affected by the toxic gas, and then specifically the fact that he only properly gets involved in it right at the end when they're going to die together. I don't think it's inherently clear that Fang dies from succumbing to the toxic gas as much as it's just like they're buried under the volcano as it goes down. That like they're buried under ash when we come back to that island later on. It's just never actually inherently made clear to us that Fang gets poisoned in the same way Roku does by the gas. I think there's a few others that people gave. Oh, I suppose the other one, I mentioned Zen there, but the reason I don't include Asami from the same comic, Turf Wars, on the list is because if you look at those panels, Asami, yes, she gets her mask ripped off with the smoke around, the gas around, but it's never shown that she inhales any of it. At the end of the book, she notes wanting to heal the other guys like Zen, but it doesn't seem like she has to heal Asami. I think the way they show the scenes, they more get across the idea that Asami holds her breath the second the mask is taken off her. So when Korra gets to her and puts the air bubble around her head, she's just gasping for her breath because she's been holding her breath for so long. I don't think she actually inhales any of it, especially to the point where you consider her poisoned. So they're the valid answer to this question. I think at most people lost 1/20th of a mark in this question. Pretty much everyone got full marks on this one, and there's not too much to debate here in my mind. So they're the answers. Let's get into the results. So first up, some quick notes. The max score is 11 out of 11. There's no extra marks. There's no ability to get over 11. 11's the max. There's no negative marking, so pretty much there's nothing you can do in the questions to give me an answer that subtracts from your score. If you get something wrong, it's wrong. It just doesn't count plus or minus. The only way I would ever do negative marking in this is if, say, for a question where I ask for, like, say, 5 characters who fit into this category, and you just send me a list with like 100 characters or like every character. In that case, I kind of feel like you're sort of cheating the question by just giving every single answer. I would probably not give you any marks for that question, even though technically you have it right. Like I'm perfectly fine with, say the poisoning question here. 20 characters who were poisoned, and you send me like 25, 27 or something like that characters you think are poisoned. That's fine, because there's always a little bit of leeway with the questions and so on. But if I feel you're just completely taking advantage of that to just guarantee yourself the question, maybe then I'd kind of feel like that way. But again, you'd have to do something, I think, pretty extreme. So in general, no negative marking. I didn't do any negative marking on the results here. Partial scores were given when applicable, meaning that if there's a question that has asked for like 5 things, you can get like, say, 0.8 of a mark for getting 4 out of 5 correct. And I do that. I try to give you as many marks as possible. That's the way sort of I do the correcting of the results here, is that I try to make your score as big as possible. But when there is stuff where it's just like, that is a wrong answer, I have to take it. But know that I try to give you as high of a score as possible. That's the way I do it. So yeah, let's just get into the results here. So we had 8 entries. So this is basically everything except the top 3. So you can see here, the lowest score was basically just around 8, which again is still very, very good, considering I think it is on the tougher side of a trivia. And the fact that only 8 people entered, I think, speaks to the fact that, considering that the people who watched the questions video, I think a lot of people were maybe scared off by the level of the questions. So, you know, congratulations to everyone who did enter for getting such, you know, pretty strong scores. And, you know, it's one of those things where, like, I'll always say with the trivias, it's about learning just as much as it is winning the trivia. That I think there's just as much value as getting the answers from these questions and sort of learning all these connections that are there in the Avatar world. I think that's one of the more unique things about the questions that I do. It's like, oh, I didn't think about things in that way to construct this question, but now I've learned something. Especially with, say, question 4, I think everyone who watches this video will probably have learned something new with the whole Dantian thing. So yeah, you can see the scores there. A few names from the first trivia there as well, getting, you know, scores within the same general range. And you can see, like, nearly everyone only lost, like, just over a mark. And considering I had a question which I did consider to be sort of like 50-50 as to whether you'd know about it or not, being question 4, most people getting, like, say, you know, there to be out with 10, you know, that's down to that one kind of random question. Otherwise, that'd be a perfect score. And then other people, apart from question 4, only losing like a third of a mark on like a question here or there. They're very strong scores. But let's move into the top 3 here. So in third place, Kainorian with a 10.167. So just a couple of lost marks across some of the questions, but in general, you know, this obviously means like they got some aspect of pretty much every question correct. In second place is Gersh with a 10.667, meaning they only lost a third of a mark. And then number 1 is Lee again with 11 out of 11. Perfect score, and you'll probably recognize that name from the first trivia because this was one of our sort of co-winners. Lee and Yuto won the first one, and now there's a solo victory for him. So Avatar Trivia Challenge winner for number 2 is Lee, and with the perfect score, which I will sort of keep a track of here. So yeah, here is the trivia champions list as it is right now. So on top with 2 wins is Lee, both perfect scores, meaning across the 2 trivia so far hasn't got a single thing wrong. And in second with 1 win, because again they were co-winners in the first one, also with a perfect score is Yuto. And again, as we go forward through the trivias, you will have your opportunity to join this list, which I will be keeping track of as we go forward. But yeah, the final thing to say is with regards to the prize, like I said in the initial video, the winner wins the opportunity to choose the topic for an upcoming Avatar discussion topic video. And this might be a call to action for other people participating in the trivia, but Lee, as he sent his questions into me, basically said that if he wins, someone else can have that prize, basically like give the prize to the second place if I win. He did win, meaning that I will, you know, do what he says here. So The prize in this case actually goes to Gersh, who came second here, which I think is fine. Again, the prize in this case is like, you know, choose a topic for a video. If you don't have one, fair enough. If you want to give it to someone else, give them an opportunity to choose a topic for a video. So I'll be emailing Gersh to, you know, decide what the video topic is, and I suppose within the next week or two you'll probably see whatever that topic is up on the channel at some point. So yeah, that's confidence. I have a feeling I might win, so if I win the prize, someone else can have it. But yeah, you know, will the champion ever be dethroned here, I suppose, is the big question. And this is always an interesting thing when this happens. Like, I was wondering if something like this would happen. Would we get regular champions, or would the winner switch every single time? But it's pretty interesting. And then just to end off, the plan for the next trivia is definitely not to wait as long as I did between 1 and 2. So my plan is to have the next trivia around Christmas, and then going into 2021, we'll try and create more of a regular schedule if it proves to be a kind of popular thing. The reason the trivias can't be more regular, like super, super regular, is because, one, like I always say, good questions, very, very difficult to come up with, considering the quality of like the people entering in terms of how much they know, how consistently people can get perfect marks and close to perfect marks on these questions. And then obviously it's to the point where I'm having to push things so much that I feel like I'm almost scaring away a lot of people from entering, because the entries were kind of way down compared to the first one, which, like, given that it was almost a year ago and my channel has grown like a decent bit since then, it kind of feels like, you know, the trivia, the amount of people entering, like, pretty much going down by half doesn't feel too great, considering like I have to make 2 videos that kind of take a while to put together, the question and then the results video plus correcting people's answers. Like, it takes a good amount of time. That's another reason why I kind of can't really just do them super regularly, is because if only like less than 10 people are entering, I still want to continue to do it because I like it, and it's like, especially going all the way back to the site, the trivia was a huge thing we did there. I want to kind of always have that as something I do on my channel. But yeah, like, this is not something I can do every month, every 2 months. So the commitment at this stage is that, like, okay, for sure 1 a year, maybe try and extend it to 2 a year. But if entries go like way down, that just means that, like, it makes me less likely to do more. But I still want to continue for those who are interested, and that's just the situation I'm in. So like I said, it's a little bit of a complicated one. It feels like the more we push things with regards to the difficulty of the trivia, the less people who are going to enter. But if I lower the difficulty of the questions, more and more people are going to get all of the questions right, meaning there's not as much value to being on the list of trivia champions. And I don't want to sort of diminish what that means, I think. So you can see the sort of situation that I'm in general. So yeah, we'll have a Christmas trivia. That's for sure going to be the next one in a couple of months. That will give me time to put some questions together and so on. But yeah, that has been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.